So this is a 1965 Ford Mustang GT. 289 V8 4-barrel carburetor, 4-speed transmission. What I have a problem with is it runs warm, but not all the time. So that's a problem, because it's if it did it all the time, you could solve the problem. So what I ended up doing is I replaced the radiator, because the person I got the car from said it leaked, the radiator leaked. Okay, so I did that. And then I went over and replaced the thermostat. I put a lower thermostat in here. But then when I tried to bolt it to the manifold, it leaked, because I ended up putting 2 gaskets on there to get it to stop the leak. Okay, but it still leaked a little bit. So then my next thing, I thought the water pump was bad. So I replaced the water pump, and when I replaced the water pump, I found that one of the inlets, the top inlet on the water pump, was partially, well, it was broken. So I'm assuming that water came out of that broken inlet and caused the leaking. So I solved all that, and it still runs warm, not all the time. So I asked all my friends, all these car guys, Mustang fanatics, everybody, what the problem is. I explained, and they said that's the issue. Then I finally talked to my brother in Kansas, and he has a friend that has one of these 289 Mustangs, but it's a automatic transmission. He said how he solved his problem. He put another fan on, because this one only has a 4-blade fan, and a shroud. Okay, so see, so this one only has a 4-blade fan, so I'll put a 5-blade fan on there. And then this has no shroud, so I bought this smaller shroud. It's the shroud that they start putting on, I think, in 1966, because Ford realized they had that problem too. And what happens is it pushes more air through the radiator, and by having a little shroud, it constricts it. So this way it just blows all over. This, with the shroud, it'll control it a little bit more. So that's what we're going to do. So I looked at the fan and I measured it to the radiator, and it comes about a 1/2 inch. Okay, so and the fan that I got to replace it, when I measured it from the center part to the outside, it looks like it's almost the same distance as the original 4-blade fan. So what I'm going to have to do is, well, I suppose I could just take off the water heater up in the upper one and the lower one, and sneak my hand down in there and try to undo those bolts, but I don't think I'm going to deal with that. I think I'm just going to pull the radiator. The radiator is only 4 more bolts after you disconnect the hoses. You got to drain the water anyways, and working real close in here, you know, I skinned my hand so many times over the years. Maybe this time I just won't. Okay, so let me get a pan, drain the water, and we'll start taking this radiator off. Alright, so I'm going to just start with loosening the cap. I'll just take the thing off. And then way down on the bottom here, open the water, and just wait for it to empty out the radiator. Alright, we'll just start with the top one. And since we're going to work it in here, let me just get rid of the whole hose. That way it just makes it a lot easier. And for 1 minute more work, there. And as we'll go after the bottom hose. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this cockpit here. I'm going to move my pan over, just in case there's some extra fluid coming. Okay, now do this easy. Get him off of there. The radiator is only 4 bolts. We got the 2 hoses. So let's take these. And there's 4. Now just move this a little bit, and we'll just lift this radiator right out of there. That's pretty easy. Okay, so what I want to check is this shroud. That small part will go down to the bottom. Does it line up with the holes? No, it does not. And you're wet. Okay. So with the radiator out of the way, makes it real easy to get out these 4 bolts to take the fan off. Okay, so that makes 4 bolts. I just put a little oil on the bolts, make it easier. Okay, let's get one. That's one. Purple on the other side. There's 2. And 3. Clockwise tighten them. Okay, we'll just go opposite directions so it seats it as even as it can. Okay, now before we put this shroud on there, to make it easier for me to see and measure and everything else, I am just going to drop this radiator back in here. Okay, and I'm just going to put it in with 2 bolts. I'll do the 2 top ones, the easiest ones there are. They're all easy, but okay, so now we have it in there. Let me measure the fan blades. Okay, the closest part comes Okay, so when I measure it, so look at the fan blade. The closest it comes is, that is 5/8 of an inch. Now the old fan was 1/2 inch, so it's 1/8 inch difference. So I don't think it makes any difference whatsoever. So I got clearance. Now what I have to do is take the radiator back out, put the shroud on there, and bolt the shroud to the radiator. Okay, I am having a hell of a time trying to figure out how the hell this shroud fits on this radiator, because none of these holes line up with anything else. So I finally called Eric over there at National Parts Depot, and he said you need to buy these brackets. Of course, how did I know? I always thought that just the shroud would just bolt right back onto the radiator. Okay, so then I'm fighting with these brackets, trying to get, how am I going to get it on over here? I don't know if you can see that or not. I'll have to look. And then it bolts over here. But what happens is, let me show you on the other side. So this is how the radiator is bolted to the front metal section that goes across, centerpiece. So when you try to put these brackets on, they don't go. They, you know, you can't put it behind because it's not, just can't get it there. So it wasn't until they sent me a picture and showed me what it looked like, and then I finally broke the code. So okay, the way you do that is the radiator here, this is where it normally bolts, and it comes from the front to the back. So if you do that, then you can't bolt the bracket up. So what you have to do is take this clip, let me show you the other side. Take this clip right here and turn it and put it on the frame and send the bolt that way to the front of the car, and then you can bolt on that little bracket. What happens, you take the bolt, you put it in the bracket, and then you put the bracket, you bolt it through that clip. That's now reversed. So you can see the different setup. It's got the bolt going to the front of the car, and then that holds the bracket on. So that's the key of putting these brackets and this shroud on here, is you have to change the clips where they're going. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take the radiator out again, and I am going to take all the clips that are on the radiator and put them on this cross member so I can bolt it going in. So that way I can get the shroud on. Okay, so the next thing, well, you have to put these little clips on the brackets, okay, and it comes with a little screw. So the other thing is, when you put the bracket on and it's got the clip here, then you can go through the shroud and onto the bracket. It's hooked to the firewall. So that's the deal. That's why it's so simple. But if you don't know, you're going to struggle like I did. So what I want to do is put these clips on. So, and I'm going to spray paint everybody, that way I'll just hide all this. But I want to put them all on the same way. So I'm going to just use the hole without the slot. And then I slip these clips right on there. And the screw goes like that. So I did that to all of them. 1, 2, 3. And screw that in so it fits. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm just going to take some high gloss Rust-Oleum paint. That way it'll blend in with the black radiator and the black shroud. Now I'll wait for that to dry a little bit, and I'll flip them over on the other side. So I just sprayed the other side. I'm going to let that sit there for a little while. So in order to get this to fit right on the car and with the shroud, I'm going to take these clips off the radiator. Okay, so now I'm going to put it on the car. What happened is that these were on like this, the hat facing the car. So when you screwed the radiator in, or bolted the radiator in, this was on the radiator. So the bolt came this way. Alright, but what I'm doing this time is I'm going to put the bolt going this way, so now I have to put these clips on the centerpiece here. So that way the radiator bolts on, and then these clips, so what happened is these clips will go on like this, and then the radiator right in there. See, so I moved that clip down a little bit, and I'm going to check this bolt so it goes in there, because if it doesn't go in there now, it's certainly not going to go in there later on. Okay, here's the last hole. Here's the one up on top. We already did that. Okay, so now we'll do the last one here. Okay, let's see if the bolt goes in there. Jeez. Fantastic. Okay, so I'll just take that back out. Now we're all set. Now we go back for the radiator. I'm going to drop this radiator back in. I'm getting so good at it, I can't believe it. Okay. So, we need a bolt and a bracket. Now remember, we reversed the way we put this in here. So, let me sort of line this up. Put the bracket on the bolt. Come on, baby, where are you? Okay, I'm going to leave that. Let's go to the other side. New bolt, new bracket. Now, we're using the oval because these are where the clips are, so I would put the shroud on there. Okay, so. And get it started. Okay, once it's started, we're good. See, so this is what I mean. Here's the radiator. Right there, the fin for the radiator. Here's the bracket. And there's the bolt. So notice it's going toward the front of the car. This time to fasten the radiator to the cross member here. Okay, so now I have to do way down on the bottom. So we'll do that one. At the top too. Okay, so that was the third one. Now we got to do. We're gonna do this one way down there. But I'm just gonna do this without filming it. This one will look better. Get it away from the fan. Okay, now let's go over here. Same thing. Then we just have the bottom one here to do. Where is this guy? And then just before it gets really tight, just the bracket where it should go. Okay, there. Alright, now they're all on. So now it's time to put the shroud on. Alright, I painted the bolts, or the screws, whatever, so that they hide in. So I'm just going to start with the easy one first. Remember, it goes from the outside of the shroud and goes into that little clip. So let's just start a few of them. There's one. Here we'll do the other one here because it's easy. And if we did it right, the ones on the bottom should just line up. So I'll try this one. Okay, so you look, you'll not be able to see it right here. Here it is. Tighten that right up. Now we'll go for the last one, which will be on the driver's side, right down on the bottom. Okay, so that's the last one. So, if you look down, you'll see here's the bracket, here's the shroud, here's the radiator, here's the bracket that hooks to the front of the radiator, and then here is the bolt that holds the shroud in position, and there's 4 of those. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Alright, now the radiator's in. Let's go for the bottom hose. Okay, so push it all the way on. Make sure it goes all the way on. Wiggle your clamp into position, and then tighten the clamp. Okay, so that's the bottom hose. Here's the hose for the top. I'll just slip it down there so nice and easy. Here's this one. Yeah, see, I would have just soon struggled with this up here than struggling with the one down on the bottom. But I'm going to put this over here so that I'm going to rub my hand over here. I don't hit this clamp. Okay, that one's nice and tight. let me move this one into position where it makes it easy for me to get at the screw and screw it in there. Okay, so now we got the lower hose is on, the top hose is on. We got that hose that goes from the manifold over to the water pump. The fan is on. So this is a 5-blade fan. Fits it right in the same position, and we have the shroud. So hopefully that makes a little funnel to suck more air through this radiator. Okay, now let's put some Redstone back in and see how it works. Okay, I know if I try to pour this directly in, it's going to make a mess and peel all over the place. So I do it in 2 stages. Okay, forgot. Make sure it gets closed down here, so it doesn't just leak right back out. Okay, we just gotta wait for it to shift down. Okay, see, it's full for now, but what we have to do, start the car, let it run, and then when it gets warm enough, that thermostat will open up, and then it'll start the circulation process. And then I'm going to show you how the water is flowing across here. Okay, so I'm just going to let it run here, warm it up. See, the water has gone down, but now what I want to show you here, may not be able to see it, but this is a 3-core, so 1, 2, and 3. It's got 3 sets of tubes running down. Some of them only have 2. This one has 3. So the thermostat kicked in, then all the press down disappeared. There's a temp gauge, so it did move. Let's put more press down in. Okay, well, we're waiting for it to get warm. I'm about to put this thing in, the little hose. Will overflow. The mix is more than 50-50 on this car, so it all depends on what part of the country you live, on how much Prestone to water ratio you need. Okay, so that fills that up. Let's start this up again. So yesterday, after I filled the radiator, got that all going, and I made sure that the clearances were right, ran the car, and the fan was not touching the shroud, and of course I just ran my fingers all the way around here again, and there's a little bit more clearance on the top than there is on the bottom, but it doesn't make any difference because it's more than a finger width. So I'm happy with that. So I took the car out for a ride. It was like 92 yesterday. It was pretty warm, and it worked. I rode all around. It didn't get super hot. It was normal temperature, so I was happy. So the shroud is the last thing that did the trick for me. So you got to remember, this is I started with the radiator. People I got the car from said the radiator leaked. I don't know if it did or not, but it was a brand new radiator, so I put it in. Okay, because it was leaking water, and I couldn't figure out where it was leaking water. Well, the next problem was the thermostat. I changed the thermostat, lower temperature thermostat, and it was okay, but I had the old housing, and the old housing didn't have a notch for the thermostat itself. So I put 2 gaskets on there after they're dry, and it still had a slow, low leak. But that wasn't all the problem. The other problem was that the inlet, the top inlet here on the water pump, was partially cracked off. So between the thermostat housing leaking and then a little leak from the water pump, so that had a dripping just a little bit too when it was under high pressure. So I had those 2 problems to deal with. So replacing the water pump, replacing the housing and the thermostat, and it still wasn't 100%. So when I put the shroud on, it forms like a little funnel here and sucks more air through the radiator. So the shroud did the trick. It's just that the installation is a little more complicated than I thought it was. But we have it all documented, and I show you guys how to do it. So on these early Mustangs, they all, well, not all, but most of them run hot. Anybody that I know that has one runs hot. And like I said, my brother's from Kansas. He put it on, and that solved his problem. I put it on, and it solved my problem. So there it is.